Hey artists! So today's skill booster is going to be Color Mixing 101. So what I'm going to show you today, and hopefully you will work along with me in this exercise, we are going to be creating a color wheel using only 3 colors plus white. So what I have chosen to do here is use the warmer of the values. So even though our blues, greens, violets are generally speaking cool colors, reds and yellows are warm colors, within those cool color tones, they can alternate between their cool and warm temperatures. So we can have blues that tend to lean cooler and blues that tend to lean warmer. So what I've put out today on our palette is Caribbean blue, which leans towards the warmer of the blues between ultramarine and Caribbean. And I've also put out transparent red medium, which leans warmer than, say, alizarin crimson, which is a cooler red, and cad yellow medium, which is a warmer yellow when compared to the cad lemon yellow. So even though that yellow, those yellows tend to be warm colors, when placed next to each other, they can lean towards either a cool or a warm temperature. So these within their rights lean towards the warmer temperatures compared to what else we have in our palette. So I've also put white out just so that whenever we mix up our darker colors like our violet, these both are translucent colors, and without the white it's going to go very dark. So I'm going to add a little bit of white in there just to bring that up a little bit, just so it shows up a little bit better as that violet tone. So we're going to start off with our primary yellow. So I'm just going to pick up some of this cad yellow medium, and we're just going to go ahead and fill in our yellow. And then we're going to go ahead and get our other 2 primaries, our red and our blue, after cleaning out the brush. So even with the color wheel, we want to make sure those colors stay pure and clean. So picking up that transparent red medium, coming right on over here. If you need to use a little bit of medium with your color on those transparent colors, that's perfectly fine to do so. Get that to spread a little bit more easily. Again, rinsing out that brush, keeping it clean, and picking up our Caribbean blue. Just going to add a little medium into that just so we can see that color a little bit better. A little more medium. Guys, does not have to be perfect in any way. We're just going to do a quick demo here. All right, so primary colors. Basic information on primaries. No 2 colors can be mixed to get a yellow, a red, or a blue, generally speaking. So these are considered to be our primary colors. We can take any of these primary colors and mix up all the other colors on the color wheel. So these colors that are halfway between our primaries are considered to be secondary colors. So we can take red and yellow and mix those fairly evenly to get our secondary color, orange. So red and yellow make orange. So we're going to put that right here in the center. And then if we look at our blue and our yellow, pulling out our blue and our yellow. I always try to pull from a different section so that we don't contaminate those colors. Getting a nice mid-tone green, Caribbean blue, and cad yellow medium. That's going to go halfway between our blue and yellow. And our final secondary color is a mixture of Caribbean blue and transparent red medium. So blue and red make violet or purple. So pulling out our Caribbean blue and our transparent red medium. Now you see how dark that goes? So that wouldn't show up real strongly on the color wheel. So we're going to go ahead and take a little bit of white and pull that in so we can actually see that color. That's leaning a little blue. We're going to add a little more red to even that out. Get a nice mid-tone violet. And that's going to go right in between our red and blue. All right, so we've got the primaries and the secondaries. So now it is time for us to get our tertiary colors. So these are the colors that are in between the primary and the secondaries. So if we mix up orange and yellow, we're going to get a yellow-orange. So I'm going to make sure I get all that purple out of my brush. All right, so we're just going to take some yellow and we're going to pull it into our orange here, pulling it over to one side so as not to contaminate the whole orange. Pull in a tiny bit more of that transparent red medium. Get a nice yellow orange to go in between our yellow and orange. Okay, and while we're working with the reds and the yellows, let's pull in some red to this orange and get a red orange. So you get the pattern. Just adding a tiny bit of medium that to just so it'll spread a little bit more easily on this porous paper that we're working on. So you can find this template in your skill boosters. And you can print out as many of those PDFs as you want. You can do a cool color wheel. Okay, this one's a warm color wheel. You can also do one. I've got one here that I did that's got actually both the cool and the warm. Cool, warm reds, cool, warm greens. So you can actually place those side by side and see what those look like. All right, let's move over to our yellow-green. So I'm just going to take some of that yellow, pull some of that green into the yellow. Remember, if you pull your darker color into your lighter color when you're trying to get a light color, it's much easier than trying to put the yellow into the green. So pull that yellow out beside the green and just slightly, gradually begin to pull that green into your yellow. All right, moving to our blue-green. So now I can take some of that Caribbean blue and just start pulling that Caribbean blue into our green. Get a nice, cool blue-green. And moving to our blue-violet. So what I'm going to do is pull in some of this Caribbean blue into the violet. So we're going more blue. And I'm going to pull some of that white in there so we can actually see it. Put a little bit more. And our last tertiary color is going to be red-violet. Red-violet, so we're going to take some of that transparent red medium, and I'm going to pull it over here to this side. So we're going more red tones, more of a red-violet Again, I'm just adding a little bit of medium just to get that to spread more easily on this porous paper. Okay, so there's our main colors of our color wheel. So what if you have some really bright greens and you're working in nature and you want to tone that green down? What can we do? We can look across the color wheel, directly across, to its opposite color or its complement, which is red. So if you add a little bit of red into your green, you're going to dull that down a little bit. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of red and a little green. So we're using more green and less red. And we're going to come right here in this little circle, and you can see how that has dulled down the green and neutralized that just a little bit. Okay, if we do the opposite and add green into the red, it's going to do the same thing. So let's just pick up a little bit of red here, trying to keep it pure. Taking a little bit of green, adding that into the red. It just takes the intensity out of that pure color. So it dulls that color down just slightly. And if we were to mix even amounts of the green and the red, we're going to get a neutral. So it's either going to go brown towards the earthy brown tones or the stony gray tones, just depending on your pigment. Okay, so just trying to get some even amounts of red and green. And what I'm going to do, just so you can see this color a little bit better, if I were to go directly in there, it's fairly dark. So let's just pick up a little bit of white so we can kind of get a more accurate picture. We're going to mix up a little more green here to pull in. So you can see it's starting to turn more gray. So mixing opposite colors on the color wheel is going to neutralize and give you a gray or an earthy brown tone, depending on the pigment and depending on the colors. So same thing is going to happen if we mix our violet and our yellow. It's going to neutralize in the center if we mix even amounts. If we mix a little bit of violet into our yellow, then it's going to dull down the intensity of the yellow. So I'm just going to get a nice clean brush. So we're going to take a nice clean pile of yellow, and I'm going to add into that just a little bit of purple. You can see that's already neutralizing. I'm just going to pull that into my yellow. Don't want to go too strong too quickly. Making sure I got a good purple tone there. Okay, so if we look directly across, we've got violet and yellow. So we're dulling down our yellow with some violet to create a less intense yellow. So if we do the opposite and we add a little bit of yellow into our violet, the same thing is going to be true. It's dulling down our violet. Okay, and you're going to get the same thing with your blue and your orange, just by adding a little bit of the opposite complementary color. So if we take a little blue and add that into our orange, if it looks more green, that means you don't have quite enough red in there. Okay, so if you've noticed, something else that you can do is add your three primary colors together. Your blue, your red, your yellow, and you'll also get a neutral. So adding orange into my blue, dulling it down to get a more neutral blue or a dulled down intensity. And then the opposite would be true with our orange. We take to mix some of that up again, mixing up our red and our yellow to get our orange, and just pulling a little amount of that into the orange just to lessen the intensity. So, one thing that I want to say about your cool and your warm values, they play, or your cool and your warm temperatures, they play really well against each other. So you do want to think about when you're painting your composition, think about leaning more heavily towards either your warm or your cool temperatures. But having said that, it always makes for a more interesting painting if you can play those cool and warm temperatures off of each other. So just as an example to show you, okay, so here is your Cad Lemon Yellow. So you can see, even though that is a warm color, it's in the warm color family, when it's placed next to its Cad Yellow Medium, it tends to look and lean towards a cooler temperature. So, and on another note, if you, for example, are painting a sunflower and you're trying to get a lighter highlight with your yellow petals, one thing I want to say about adding white to those cadmiums. So white tends to be a little bit chalky when added into our cadmiums or our opaque colors. When we use white with our transparent colors, we get these beautiful, brilliant color tones. Okay, so we're adding Caribbean blue, which is a transparent color, and white together. You can see it makes these beautiful, vibrant, pretty colors. But if we add white into, say, a Cad Red Light, which is an opaque cadmium color, it's going to tend to look chalkier. Or if we add white into our yellow, Cad Yellow Medium, you might not get the same intensity that you want as you would as if you were going with a lighter or different cadmium. So instead of reaching for your white, okay, if you look at this painting of the sunflowers here, if you look at these highlights of the yellows, what I did here was I went for the Cad Yellow Lemon before I mixed the white in with the yellows. So if you can consider looking at your palette and notice that those cadmiums are lined up from dark to light on your regular color palette, then pick those lighter tones. So if you've got a Cad Yellow Medium flower petal, instead of mixing white in to go in for a highlight, try working with your Cad Yellow Lemon. Okay, and you can still come in and add white to that, but that's going to save your painting from getting too chalky or too muddy. Now there are instances when you want to use the white and you want it to go a little more chalky. So I do that a lot of times whenever I'm working with tiles on roofs, like those terracotta tiles or those clay flower pots, and I want those to look more chalky or muddy. Then sometimes I'll go in and add Cad Red Light and white with transparent oxide oranges, and that white tends to make it look more clay-like, which is what we're going for. So just keep those things in mind. and hopefully those tips will help you out a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed working with your color wheel, and hope that you will do some more on your own using the cool colors and just mixtures of different pigments of your primary colors, your reds, your blues, and your yellows. So thanks for watching, and have fun mixing.